this spring maybe than previous?
Yeah, this was something, I was looking forward to. And, if you ask how my spring's been going, it's just been improving every day. Just learning things new day, continually, take reps and stuff. You just learn things, you find things to improve on. And that's all it's been to me every day, just, trying to get better every day.
What part of your game do you think has improved the most over the course of the spring?
I think I've become real vocal. I think everybody knew I was already kind of physical coming in, kind of showed that on, special teams and things like that, where I had fit in. But I think it's the more just the vocal side of being a mic. I think I've really, taken on that control, when it comes to being on the field, making calls, making judgment decisions at times, at mic, you got to do that sometimes. I think that's been the biggest part of my game right now that's, just really grown.
Do you think that part of yourself would have come out, even if you weren't playing Mike, if you weren't going to push in that role where you have to be a communicator in charge of?
Eventually, I feel like it would have came out. Mike just kind of, sped it up. Like I have to make the calls, and that kind of just leads on, all those other things of being, vocal on the field and just trying to be that leader.
We hear all the time about cross training, trying to play different positions as a linebacker in this defense. I mean, what's it like coming in as a freshman and trying to get your feet wet, but also figure out where you fit best, but also be versatile?
Yeah, so coming in, to me, I was glad to learn behind Brandon George, and Keith Thompson, and I had fit in the special teams. So to me, it was just being the best man for the job. Last year coming in as a freshman, trying to fit in, it was just being the best man for the job. And now, it's the same. It's the same, ideas. Just I'm in a different setting. I'm really at Mike, competing, taking reps instead of just being a reserve linebacker playing special teams.
What have you learned from being in the linebacker room with Kyle, Rasheem, Braylon? What have you learned from those guys?
What I learned from those guys, really how to play as a unit. A lot of guys, like they try to play individually on the field, but in the room, like we really talk about how we want to play stuff against certain schemes, like just playing as a unit. And, once you get to doing that, you start seeing, how y'all already know how they talk about Kyle and him, like the best linebacker duo returning the nation. But it's because, like those guys really study film, and talk to each other and understand how they want to play stuff.
You mentioned being more vocal. Kyle and Rasheem have both mentioned also that you kind of brought on this Sharks mantra. What does that mean to you? So
the Sharks, it stemmed from, Kyle and him. If I'm correct, they're actually called like Sharks themselves in high school. And, I kind of bring along, just eating face. And to me, like playing linebacker is all about physicality. Like you should want to run through somebody's face. You should want to hit somebody. You should want to make somebody feel you, at linebacker. And that's kind of that aggression, just help fuel the rest of the linebacker room. Just the aggression that I have and stuff. It kind of just turned everybody else up.
You're playing Mike and on the outside, right?
Yeah.
Where are you most comfortable?
I've really grown into that Mike position, so I've gotten comfortable in it. But it's not a matter of being comfortable. Like I could play Mike and Money. We got guys that can play all three positions. So, when we need to, even, depending on certain packages, and like I said, when it comes back to, being in the room and learning from other guys, sometimes, a guy could play, at Money better, than at Mike in a certain situation or things like that. So, we kind of have that, a little bit of that freedom, to be able to, kind of speak on that. But yeah, it's not a matter of comfortability, it's just like we get cross-trained and everything. So when the time comes and somebody has to step up, we can step up.
Anything else?
What do you like most about Coach Manilak?
Coach Manny, the thing I like most besides his knowledge, he's very smart. He matches his players, the energy in the room, and he lets us be us, which allows us to play even better and mesh together and really just go on the field and put the product out, that they get them guys put out last year and what we're trying to do this year.